Just ahead on American Black Journal, an eye-opening report about Detroit's mortgage market and the small number of African Americans who get home loans in the city. Plus, two Detroit chefs talk about soul food trends and how Black-owned restaurants are faring in the city's rebirth. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. A Detroit Free Press analysis of mortgage data reveals just how slow the mortgage market is in the city of Detroit. The report shows that few black people are getting mortgages in the city, and in fact, white people received almost the same number of mortgages as blacks in 2017, even though they make up a much smaller percentage of the city's population. Joining me now is Free Press columnist John Gallagher, along with Libby Palikdary, Senior Director of Financial Stability Programs at Southwest Solutions. Thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you.
So, John, tell me about this analysis. What did you find?
Well, the mortgage market, which used to be almost non-existent in the city of Detroit for a lot of reasons, including outright discrimination and redlining back 50 years ago, has gotten a little better in the last few years. We're now making about 1,000 mortgages a year in the city. But there's large portions of the city that don't see any mortgage lending at all. It's mostly being done in a few selected neighborhoods like Palmer Woods and East Riverfront. And 4 out of 5 home sales in the city are probably still done with cash or land contracts, which is a very disadvantageous way to buy a home. Lots of problems with that. And as you mentioned, that white people who are probably moving into the city in bigger numbers now are getting almost half the mortgages that are being made. So even though the needle has moved somewhat in the right direction, we have a long way to go still.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when people see headlines like this or read stories like this, the first question is this principally about race? Is race the thing that is holding people back from being able to get financing?
Well, race and poverty underlie the issue totally. Right. There's no question about that. I think the mainline issues tend to be there's low appraisals in the city because home values have been low for so long. And they don't support mortgages, bad credit on the part of a lot of Detroit residents. But I think really anything that makes it harder to live in the city, including high cost of car insurance, lack of educational credentials, high cost of child care, anything that makes it harder to live makes it harder to qualify for a mortgage.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of programs that are doing a lot of good, and we'll talk about those, and they have helped. But we just have a long way to go, I think.
And so one way to look at it is we have eliminated the ability for banks to just look at someone's race and say, I won't give you a mortgage. But because there are lingering disparities between black and white in our society, the things that they do look at still pick up racial differences.
That legacy of race and poverty is still
there.
Still there.
Yeah. Libby, you guys work really hard at trying to turn this ship around. I can't imagine you were surprised by what we saw in the Free Press, though.
No, we see it, and that's what we're working every day to address. So at Southwest Solutions, we offer homebuyer education and one-on-one support for anybody that's interested in purchasing a home. I would say probably 75% of the people we are working with are people of color. We support both long-term people that need a lot of TLC along the way to become mortgage ready, But then also there's a good number of people who have the credit score but maybe just need some down payment assistance to help offset the cost. And if they're at a certain income level, they'll be eligible for it. So those are kind of more fast track home buyers. The majority of the people that we're working with who are white are coming through that door.
Yeah.
And so they're getting access to programs like Detroit Home Mortgage, Mishta's down payment assistance, and then we're trying to offer one-on-one support to everybody to get all those resources so that they can too become a homeowner.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people think to themselves, I need to buy a home, I want to buy a
Right.
home. Oftentimes, though, they don't really know all of the things
Right.
that you should have kind of in order
Yeah.
before you do that.
We have over 100 people a month reaching out to us because they want to purchase a home.
Yeah.
So the demand is there.
Yeah.
For all the reasons you were saying, it's very difficult for people to achieve that. What we really focus on is helping people understand what a bank is going to look at to say yes or no, you're eligible for a mortgage. And it's not just being eligible for a mortgage, but the better your credit, the more money you have for down payment assistance, the more affordable that mortgage is going to be in the long run. Because if you don't have enough down payment, you'll have to pay mortgage interest as kind of a security for the bank. So we will work with individuals on ways to improve their credit score. We'll look at their credit, student loans, medical debt, all these things.
Right.
We're seeing it. We're seeing it, and that's a whole other issue too. But so we work with people to pay off debts, prioritize how to do it so
Yeah.
that they can improve their credit, work towards savings, and then fortunately, programs like Mishta's down payment assistance offers $7,500 down payment assistance. For a little bit, they had a $15,000 down payment
Wow.
assistance program. And there's so many people in the city that are living paycheck to paycheck. They're making it. They're making it happen. They're reliable renters. But to cross that hump and become a homeowner,
save enough
they need that
to-
extra support.
Yeah.
So we're very grateful for, it's over 100 people each year that we've been able to help to become a homeowner.
Yeah.
So, but the demand, we could do so much
I was
more.
going to say, right.
We could do so much
There's a
more.
lot
So,
of work to do.
yeah.
John, what do the banks say about this?
Well, the banks say they admit that they used to redline the city. I think
Yeah.
everybody admits that, and they're trying. They used to think it was simply a matter of putting more mortgage capital into the system, and then they found out that there's all these appraisals, all these problems with lower appraisals and so on. But the advantage of buying a home through a mortgage is so much greater than buying it with cash. First you establish credit.
Right.
That's good. You establish comparable values, so everybody else in the neighborhood can now get a mortgage.
Yeah.
And of course, you can buy a much larger asset with a mortgage than you could just with cash alone.
Right.
And so, the home buying has always been a ticket to the middle class for the majority population in America. And that's been denied in Detroit and, a lot of cities like Detroit. And so it's really important that everybody understands how this is not a side issue. This is as important an issue as we have in the city for building wealth,
Right,
family
right.
wealth and generational wealth.
And so because it's geographic in the way that it plays out, you've got all of these neighborhoods where it's almost impossible really to get a mortgage, and then you've got some places where it's getting easier, I guess, to get a mortgage. Is there a thought that this is just a matter of time before the values come up in these sort of stable neighborhoods and that spills over maybe to these other neighborhoods and makes it easier to get a mortgage, or do we have to do something more proactive?
Well, there are programs to target neighborhoods that are not doing very well. So the Land Bank's Rehab and Ready program, where they
Right.
go to a neighborhood like Bagley on the northwest side and deliberately take homes and spend money up front to rehab them and fix them up, and then sell them to a buyer, which will qualify for a mortgage. So there's interventions in certain neighborhoods beyond sort of Grandmont, Rosedale, and Indian Village
Yeah.
to jumpstart these things. And the good news is once you get a few mortgage loans in a neighborhood, you tend to get more because
it's
now you have
snowballing
yeah,
effect,
snowballs. Or someone said you get the flywheel turning. So I think some of it's going to spread from Midtown and downtown and Palmer Woods, and some of it we just have to intervene in some of the hard-hit neighborhoods.
Are the banks helping with what you guys are trying to do as well?
Yes, absolutely. And there's some banks that have really stepped up to take time to address the special needs of Detroit, too. I think, banks, realtors, everybody in the home ownership ecosystem can make a lot of money in the easy markets where you can sell a home for $500,000. To sell a home for $50,000 in Detroit, it's very different. So I'm very grateful for the banks and realtors and everybody that we're working with that understand the value, and it's more than just the revenue that you'll get at the end, and helping to have the neighborhoods become more stable.
I think we do have a lot of smart people working on this, and there's a lot of programs. There's multiple programs working on this. I think the question is, how fast is it going to do some good?
Right.
It's obviously doing some good. How fast does it really pick up and get going?
That's a critical question for the mayor and the city administration, which has really, I think, changed the narrative about the city away from what happens in downtown and midtown to the neighborhoods, and they have a lot that they're, I think, proud of accomplishing there. This shows how wide the gap still is, though.
Yeah, the mayor's recent State of the City address was entirely about the neighborhoods.
That's right.
And but you're right. I think we've made some really good progress, but I think people understand we're still at the front end of this recovery.
An interesting thing that's going to be happening is there was a lot of neighborhoods that were financed through low-income housing tax credit, single-family homes, and those homes are now, the 15 years is up, so the renters of those homes have the opportunity to purchase those homes. So we're working in the Newberry neighborhood in partnership with the Yaker Foundation, and we have about 60 homes. It's really interesting because they're renters who are happy in their home renting, but they have this amazing opportunity to purchase a home.
To be a homeowner.
Yeah. And so I was looking at the lovely map that was in your article. It was very nice, and there was 0 mortgages in this neighborhood. But because of this partnership that we have, in the next few years, there might be 60 mortgages in that. So I think there's a lot of very creative things happening with Detroit Home Mortgage, the Land Bank, these low-income housing tax credit communities. I think we need to continue developing communities in that way. So in the future, there's a continuous pipeline for renters to become homeowners as well.
And we have to deal with the Wayne County tax auction. Because having tens of thousands of people lose their home and lose any kind of family wealth, generational wealth, that we have to deal with that.
That feeds right into this gap.
problem.
And the city's doing creative things to address that, too.
Yeah, they're working, but it's going to take a while. Okay,
Yes.
John Gallagher, Libby Palakdary. Why do I never get your
it's a
name
tough one.
right?
It's all right. Nobody
We've
does.
known each other forever. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Just ahead, keeping the soul in soul food. But first, here's a 1987 Detroit Black Journal episode about housing discrimination in the city.
Hi, you're on DBJ. Go ahead.
Yes, I've had some experiences, and in casual conversation have discovered that there are some experience of this type of discrimination beginning to develop in the downtown area as it becomes more gentrified. And I'm very curious about their experience about that.
Okay. Now, and while we do that, you too, not only did you get angry once you filed your suit, but you in fact have joined the Fair Housing Center's board.
Yes, I have.
So you too have been looking into this kind of discrimination that's going on across the way. Let me see if I can put that to you in those. Do you find that the new developments that are going up downtown have been ones that whites are being steered to?
I haven't had experience.
Okay.
Maybe one of the others.
Marvin, is that true?
We haven't conducted any studies in that area. We have investigated a number of places downtown and have gotten evidence and have went to court against them, but we haven't done any studies right now to really pick up, so I can't really say right now whether or not.
Jeff, what about that? Are they pricing themselves out of the black market?
I would think it would be more of an economic form of discrimination downtown, and obviously it's just a numbers game. You know, you look at the average disposable income by a black, and it's one figure, and you look at it from a white perspective.
Do you think that's a conscious effort, though? And not by all. Now, we don't want to say everybody's doing that, but
I would say semi-unconscious. And I say that only because they're trying to get a balance, a more equalized balance. And by doing that, they know if they raise the price, oftentimes in supply and demand, the higher the price, then the fewer people who will actually come and get the product. And the person who want and can afford the product, then that's the client or the customer that you want. So I think from a reverse point of view, that's what's happening, say, in a downtown area right now.
As the restaurant scene in Detroit continues to boom, it presents a unique challenge to Black-owned restaurants and African-American chefs. They're faced with finding new ways to brand their businesses. Location, atmosphere, customer service, marketing, and dietary concerns all come into consideration when trying to build a steady customer base. Additionally, soul food is no longer only a staple at Black restaurants. It is showing up on menus in many white-owned eateries. Joining me now are two local chefs, Maxwell Hardy, owner of River Bistro and Coop Detroit, and Phil Jones of Maharu. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So I think this is a really fascinating dynamic that we're seeing unfold with a city that's as heavily African-American as Detroit, sort of with this resurgence, and that resurgence focusing on food, and then what role African-American chefs and restaurants play in that rebirth. It is not a simple picture.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's crazy how you've seen it the last, I guess, century, quarter century, how it has, like, you know, changed in our dynamic as chefs and in the restaurant industry. Before, as a chef, for me, coming in as a young, you know, chef in Miami, trying to really make my mark, and seeing so many other white chefs and non-African-American chefs, you know, put a staple on soul food and Caribbean food, is, you know, it's like, how do you get the right to do that? You know, I'm not saying, you know, you don't know, you know, but, you know, you don't have
But it puts you in a weird space,
yeah,
right?
no, it's like, well, should I be doing other things outside of soul food and, you know,
Should
Caribbean?
you be making German
right,
food?
right, Italian, like, you know, what,
Right.
you know, what should I be doing? And so I think you find a lot of chefs in that mixed space as African-American trying to figure out, you know, well, I thought this was my landscape. I thought this is what I should be doing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Phil?
there are always assumptions that Black chefs cook soul food. And while a lot do, it's not the only place that we come from.
Right.
And I'm actually a culinary mutt. I don't claim soul food.
Yeah.
I don't claim to cook it. I don't claim to know it. I'm soul food influenced. My grandmother came from the red dirt of Georgia, but I visited the South. I'm not from the South. I'm from the North. I lived on the East Coast. I live here in the Midwest. I'm from the islands. I'm from a lot of places, but not the South. And I get pegged, oh, you must cook really good soul food. No,
Because
not
you're
at all.
African-American, right?
Yeah, not at all. I pay tribute to soul food, but, you know, I find that we can appropriate inside of our own cultures.
Yeah.
And I refuse to do that.
So how do you sort of split that tension and figure out what it is you want to do and what customers want from you?
Well, for me, you know, kind of piggybacking on what Chef said, you know, I never wanted to be played as a soul food chef.
Yeah.
Right. That's just what I didn't want to do it. I shied away from doing soul food for so long, just because I couldn't get the dollar in catering as a private chef that I would if I was doing the other cuisine. Right. So I was like, once you're known as a soul food chef, and you know, you only can charge up to $15 per person, right? But, you know, you start doing other cuisines, now you're getting $30, $40 a person.
Is that right?
And so it's, I think people
And that difference is just
the name of the cuisine, right? If I say I'm doing soul food or Southern, you know, cuisine, and versus I said I'm going to do a fusion of, you know, Asian and Caribbean, it's like, oh, wow, that seems a little more intriguing, right? But I'm using more intriguing ingredients doing soul food than I am, you know, doing any other cuisine. So it's just it's a mix, you know, just how we perceive soul food to be. Yeah. You know.
I sit back and I listen to Chef, and we're always defined by what we do and how we do it. And soul food has been relegated to the lower levels because it's considered to be slave food, food of enslaved folks. And we forget that it actually took a lot of technique to make food, soul food, taste good.
Sure, right.
You actually have to know a bunch of different techniques, and Black folks are actually culinary griots.
Yeah.
We maintain the knowledge base for a lot of different cultures, and a lot of different cultures within inside of our world. And so we watch us being pegged as one thing. You know, Africa is a bunch of countries. You're an African. Well, you don't say you're a European. You're Italian. You're German. You're French. Right. And we get pigeonholed into these things, and it's a battle. I know you see it.
And I always think of, like, if you paid a doctor per hour, right? You pay him $300 an hour. Well, if you're paying a chef $10 an hour, but it takes hours to make that red gravy. It takes hours to make to make a proper roux, to make a demi, to turn into some of these things that we know. It takes hours to make greens. So if we put a time limit on it and an hourly wage on it, we should be making just as much as a doctor, in certain recipes. And you think of soul food. Some of those ingredients, man, they're indigenous to us as people,
right?
To the places we come from.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to find. It's hard to find some of those ingredients, right? And really do it right.
Yeah.
You think of people say collard greens. I was reading, kind of a post on the collard greens that Neiman Marcus was selling or something like that, right? And they use bacon. I'm like, well, that wasn't. That's not what goes in there. That's not it.
Yeah.
So. How do we get to that, right?
Right.
And how do we get back to, just our roots as chefs? And so for me, now I do some soul food and Caribbean mix, right? Because now I feel like I shouldn't shy away from it anymore. It's just, really do it.
Yeah.
And do it at a price point and that people can understand and love, and the quality of food that I put out should be from the soul, right? And whether it's whatever region, whatever cuisine you're going to do, it should be from your soul. Yeah. And I think that's what soul food really means to me, cooking from the soul and cooking from some of those, parvish moments and some of those, ancestry moments where we can really get back to our roots, and I think that's where the way of culinary is moving anyway, right? Getting back to some of those stews and low country cooking and whether it's soul food or whether it's, Italian cuisine, I think a lot of chefs are getting back to some of those roots, which is, I think is important for us,
What about opportunities for chefs like yourselves in the new quote unquote Detroit? I mean, I don't love that phrase, but I think it does sort of capture that there's a different dynamic right now than there has been. Is it easier, is it harder, or is it just different?
Chef,
it's just as bad as it's always been.
Yeah.
And, I've got Chef Max right here. I say to folks all the time that there are more black chefs than Chef Max. And I applaud what this brother's doing. I support what he's doing. But we don't get the recognition. We don't get the financing. We don't get the dollars. And we've been here taking care of this city when no one else did. There's this resurgence of food in Detroit, but there are no more black chefs than there were. There are no more black restaurants than there were. We've always been here. Why is it all of a sudden something new and exciting and wonderful? There's food in Detroit.
There always was food.
They talk about obesity in Detroit. If we're so obese, where are the restaurants that are feeding these folks?
Right.
And just going back to the dollar, we can't get money for soul food or black food, but a chicken breast costs me just as much as person X anyone else. Our food costs are exactly the same. We don't get a bump down because it's black food.
Right.
And so why are they allowed to make money and we're not? It's a hard road.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, coming back to Detroit from New York and really wanting to be a part of this whole food synergy, my thing was like use my platform that I've been able to use as a chef to showcase some of those African-American chefs that were already here, right? You let me come into the city, you're gonna give me a platform because you think it's cool because I'm back from New York and the whole buzz, and like that's fine and great, but let me use that platform to open up doors for other chefs that was already here to give them the shine and the light. So for me, I brought in some really cool, talented chefs that was locally chefs. I'm helping training some students from Detroit to put back into the industry or put into the industry and give them a light, right? And just use my platform to give them the next step up, because it wasn't like chefs say they always been here, but it wasn't opportunities that necessarily presented to them on that scale. So now that it being given to me, let me use that to let them shine as well, right? Versus me taking a shine. Let them shine.
Do you find it easy to find reception for that? Like the idea that you want to bring other people through the door with you?
Yeah, I mean, Detroit's always been, kind of a meat and potatoes town, and it hasn't been like, Sheffield and some of the other, legendary chefs that's been here has had some great opportunities, but it wasn't something where you go in to see these 5-star James Beard Award-winning chefs and all this stuff. You really didn't have that. So now that you have that, I think the light is being shined on so many restaurants and opportunities in the city. So I think now students are starting to open up and get those opportunities and really step in place and make it happen. But this is one of those things like where we have to really grab it and go with it. And we all got to stick together and make it work. You know, like that's the key. You know, we can get all these opportunities, but if we can't, you know, monetize it and work together to make it happen, then you know it just goes out the door.
We're out of time, but I want to thank you both for being here and wish you luck in that new space. Right. That's our program. Yeah, right. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can check out past episodes. Plus, you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, Craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.